Hi, I'm Carolyn, and I have been a member of World Harvest Church for 5 years now, and this is my testimony. I grew up in a Christian home. I have great parents, I have a great family, and they introduced me to Jesus early on, which I'm forever grateful to them for. And as I grew up, I kind of started realizing that, okay, I feel comfortable where I'm at. I'm good. I really enjoyed school, and I was in, musical theater, band, choir, sports, track and field, dance, all of these things. And I was involved in youth group, and yeah, I don't know. I just really loved my life there.
When I was 16, my family decided to move because my dad was recruited for a job in Cameron, Wisconsin. And that devastated me because, as I said, I felt like I had everything going for me. I had the friends, I had the boyfriend, I had the grades, I was on track to be valedictorian, I had the community, I had the church, I had everything. And what I didn't know at the time, but I know now, is that I was placing my identity in all of those things. And so when they were taken from me, I didn't know who I was anymore.
And some things happened back with my hometown. I ended up going to college instead of transferring to a high school. And some people misunderstood my heart behind that. And it just ended up being not such a good situation. And I ended up losing a lot of friends and connections back home. And I didn't have those friends or connections here. And so I really fell into a deep-seated depression and anxiety. And I had no idea how to fight my way out of that because I knew God. I knew that He was real. I knew what I should do, but I just couldn't bring myself to care about it. I felt like, okay, Lord, I have never really asked you for much. And then when my family said that they were moving, the only thing that I wanted was for you to stop this from happening to me, and you didn't. And so I know that you exist. I know that you're real, but I just don't want you, and I don't want you to be a part of my life because I felt very hurt and betrayed by God. And so it was like I didn't have anyone really in my corner at that time. Obviously, I had my family, but I felt like I was at war with them too because they were the ones who had made the decision to move us. And so for 18 months, my entire freshman year at Barron County and most of my sophomore year, I really, really struggled with depression and with the relational situations that were going on with my community back home. And it was really, really tough. I did not want to be alive anymore. I had trouble getting up in the mornings. I cried myself to sleep almost every single night. I was having panic attacks. It just was not a really great situation. And then looking back on it now, it's just interesting to see how God had His hand on it the whole time.
It's crazy how God has perfect timing. Because on the first day of my English 102 class, I just felt like I needed to sit in the back, which was weird for me because I always sit in the front of all my classes. I want to be up there. That's the kind of student I am, but I felt like I needed to sit in the back. And so I sat in the back, and sure enough, 3 minutes late, in walks this guy and sits down next to me, and I immediately thought, we will never be friends because, he's late on the first day of class. And then we got to talking, and lo and behold, we became very good friends. And he invited me to come to church with him. And at that time, I was not interested in church at all. My parents had tried to drag me to church at a different church a few times. And I just kind of rebelled at that because I knew God. I had known God my whole life, but I felt like if He had allowed everything to be taken from me, then I didn't want a relationship with Him. But because my friend asked me to go, I went.
And I remember walking into the building and being so overwhelmed because there's people and there's things going on, and he was on worship team, so I didn't even have someone to sit with. And I specifically remember hiding behind the pillar at church and just sticking there as close as humanly possible because I didn't want anyone to touch me or talk to me because I felt so out of place. And then worship started, and it was everything changed. I felt the presence of God so strongly, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I needed more of it. And I went home that day, and I was like, all right, there was something there, and I knew that I had to go back. And so then I went back the next week, and I felt the same exact thing, and the next week, and the next week, and the next week, and I realized through getting involved with the cell group that what I was feeling was the presence of God. And I don't know, I just had this moment. I was home for lunch from one of my classes. I had break, and I went to my parents' house because that's where I was staying for lunch. And I just like threw on some worship music, and I was just like going after the Lord. And I had this crazy like encounter with God, just like face down in my parents' living room, like sobbing, getting snot in the carpet kind of like encounter with the Lord. And I just knew that everything in my life had to change. And I knew that it was the right thing for me, and it was the best thing for me, and I wanted it, and I wanted it to change, and I wanted to live again. And so I just committed myself to figuring whatever this was out. Like, I wanted the presence of God, and I wanted my life to change, and I wanted good friends, and I wanted all of it. So I just invested myself in cell group and in church and in praying and in my secret place and learning God's voice and growing in all these different areas. And you could ask like my sister, I was not a pleasant person to live with those 18 months when I was like so depressed and anxious. And she just sensed like an immediate change in me. It was like a light had switched, and I was back. I was here again. Like, I was present. It was me instead of like this shell of a person that I had become. And like, not only was I me, but I was better than I had ever been before. And throughout the last 5 years, honestly, I can't even describe to you the moments that like God has had his hand on in my life, and all of the ways that he's come through in every single area of my life. It's just been incredible. I remember having a conversation with my mom, like, oh gosh, it must have been before I went to Eau Claire. And she was like, you know, like when we were praying about whether or not that we should move, we knew that it would be good for Dad. We knew that it would be good for me. We knew it would be good for your sister, but we just weren't sure about you. And we knew that, you know, you had so much going for you here, and we didn't want you to lose that, but we weren't sure like if this move was going to be good for you. And as we were praying about it, we specifically heard God say like, yes, it's going to be good for you guys, but this move is for her. And it's just cool to know that even all the way back then, like he had me in mind. He knew that I needed to be moved. He knew that my identity needed to be shaken in all of those things, in performance, and in the words of others, and that I would find my true identity in him. And he knew that that's what I needed. And he knew that I would have so much more than I ever lost back there. And so it's just a cool testament to how faithful God is and how he clearly does have a plan. And we can see his hand throughout our whole lives if we look for it. He's always been there, and he always will be. So this is your encouragement to trust the plan, stick to the plan, trust that God has your best interests at heart, even when the situation that you're going through looks hopeless, because my situation felt so hopeless, and I didn't think I would ever be happy again. I never thought I'd be free again. And here I stand on the other side, and I'm happier than I've ever been, and I'm more free than I've ever been. And I know God so much more deeply than I ever did or ever would have had this not happened to me. So I don't know. That's my story, I guess.